everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Kaiju Kingdom podcast. We are your hosts,
Jessica!
And I am Chris Eaton. Oh, it is 2024, Jessica. It is a brand new year, which also means that we are kicking off the 70th anniversary of the reason why we do this show. Now, the official 70th anniversary is still months down the line. That is the beauty about having an anniversary towards the end of the year. You got all year to properly exploit it and celebrate it.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Jessica? How's your holidays been? How's everything going for you?
I think, without going into detail, I wanted the year to end strong and start strong, but it ended up like a mixed bag of both. So it's like, like everyone seems to be having something going on, like end of 2023 into 2024. I had a friend who had like lost all their luggage or something coming back from the end of 2023, but they're like, oh, the new year's gonna be fine. And when the new year came, washer dryer broke. And it was like what is going on?
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, Jessica knows. I don't want to go too deep into it. I had some personal, slightly personal passing. So yeah, it's been a mixed bag. Coming back from Japan, high, and then going to a deep low during the holidays. But we're not here to. That's the beauty about New Year. It's a fresh start. We're going to look forward, and we're going to celebrate accordingly.
Yes.
I love this thing. See if I can get it to work. There you go. Yeah, watch him go. I feel like Mel Brooks in Spaceballs. Merchandising. Oh. Mwah! Best $44 I've ever spent.
I had a friend be like, I hope to not get mold, or like I enjoy mold or something like that, because I didn't realize it was steam.
It is. Hold on. Ready? And it's cold. It's cold.
Cold.
Yes, it's not hot.
Okay.
And I put there's a little droplet that comes with this thing, so you pop this guy open and you just squeeze like more than and it's I've set this thing off like 20 times and it's still not run out of water yet. So
it's like a drop of water?
Yeah, it's just a little dropper. Like you just like 2 squeezes of it, fill this thing up enough to where I've cranked up the fire at least 20 times already.
Oh,
one more time. This is a man that's going to turn 40 in 4 weeks.
No, but it's well worth it. I didn't know. I saw it at Target for $60, but you said 44?
Because I price matched.
Oh.
But the key is you have to catch when Walmart's stock is up. It's not out of stock because they're going to try to sidestep. I took a nice little screenshot when it was in stock. When I got it at Target, I ordered it, and then when I went to pick it up, I had them price match.
Yeah.
So they gave me a nice little refund too. So believe me, the last 2 weeks have been bonkers because I've done something I haven't done in a long time, and that has been toy hunting.
Yeah.
Because our neck of the woods got all of the Godzilla Kong merchandise super early. Because the good folks the good people who work at Walmart don't care about street dates. They don't care at all. I managed to find one like 2 days after Christmas, and I started bouncing around. I'm like,
yeah.
It was like a Monday. I'm like, oh, tonight they're going to put out more. And the person that I got the first one from, which, by the way, you can go to our YouTube channel, and I've reviewed every one of these figures. It is youtube.com at the Kaiju Kingdom Podcast. Why don't you go and subscribe? Because got a lot of fun stuff up there now. I've been cranking stuff out. So Um, yeah, so I started looking around the Walmarts in my area, and lo and behold, before two of them closed in, let's just say, less than desirable areas that
Ooh, okay.
encompass Southern California, uh, there were pallets out. So I made the trek to these neighborhoods at 5 in the morning to make sure that I would be there. One of them lied to me, like the dirty dogs that they are, didn't put out the figures. And to this day, I still don't think they put out the figures. So I went to the second one, which is even sketchier neighborhood, and they were still stocking as I walked in, and they hadn't put out any of the Godzilla boxes. And I just kind of went like, "Hey, you guys gonna open these?" And the lovely woman's like, "Oh, what do you need?" I'm like, I'm just looking, like, these are all different. "Oh, let me open them for you. Here, take this, take this." I'm like, yes. So there's a thing about toy hunting. Not only is it you're looking for the thing you want, not only does it taste sweeter when you get a deal on it, meaning you didn't buy it aftermarket, or you didn't buy it flipped, or the biggest thing, you found it in the wild. That's always that's the sweetest gem. What makes that fruit juicier is when you get it before everyone else. And
Yes.
like I haven't felt that rush in a long time. Even though I'm like, hey, I'm going to review these. I'll probably keep one or two. And I have friends and acquaintances who have kids that wanted Godzilla figures. So I'm like, I will pass these along to them. But man, there was nothing better than other toy collectors going, "Where'd you find them? Like, you got them already?" I'm like, "Yes." You don't know my secret yet. You don't. It is. Yes, it's the thrill of the hunt. Like, to be fair, yes, most of those figures I have posted are now in the hands of age appropriate people. So that I got some flack for not opening one of the boxes because it was going to be a late Christmas present to somebody, and I was not going to be that kind of dick and open up something that was going for a 6-year-old. So, but when I found this guy, this is one Chris was keeping.
Yes. If you find an extra, let me know.
I will. Our mutual friend George actually pre-ordered two from a Target in his area, and we went to go pick it up. Someone had sold it out from under him. So you're not guaranteed anything in this life, including your pre-orders.
Okay. If you and George find one, let me know. I just haven't
We
had
will.
time. I saw it on our channel, and then I haven't had time to go out to look for one. The local Target I was at claimed that they had two, but I didn't have time to go down the toy aisle because, for those who know, I needed to get coffee and I needed to get in and out of that area.
Those are Sophie's choices,
I
especially with
had
In
to
and
get
Out.
coffee and I had to come home and I had something to do. So I was like, no. And everybody who knows, Chris risked his life for less than desirable areas to bring toy reviews. I
It
was
makes
like,
it's unearned street cred for this fat white guy going
no,
into going into shady parts of East LA to find toys, to toy hunt, because this is
no,
what I do. Yes.
no. Shanking
Mhm.
has no discrimination.
No, it doesn't. It really
So,
doesn't. So
so
no.
everyone risks.
Yeah. But I did there was a guy though, because I went to there's a Walmart near me that, like, a day after I found the other things, I'm like, I'm gonna just go look around.
Uh-huh.
And the toy aisle was empty because it's that weird dead week in between Christmas and New Year's. I call it Void Week. It's when you're out of school, it's the week you get to enjoy all your Christmas presents uninterrupted. Like, it is the week where you're allowed to enjoy everything before you go back to the realities of school. That's how it was for me growing up. As an adult, I realized everyone is out of town, no one is at work, no one cares. You could do anything this week. It is the one week of the year where essentially you can worship to whatever demon god that you worship to, and if he brings about the apocalypse, no one's going to care because everyone is just in their own little bubbles, getting over Christmas and looking forward to New Year's. So, um, there was a gentleman, and we kind of locked eyes in the toy aisle as I was looking to scope at the top, because I that's what I learned from some of the Walmarts. They were putting the ones that were breaking street date were putting them up on top. I found the little crystals, and this dude just looks at me, and he sees me holding the crystal
Yeah.
sets, and he's just kind of looking at me like, "Hey man, are you gonna buy all those?" I'm like, "No. Can I get like two?" I'm like, "Yeah, here." He's like, "Oh, cool, thanks, man." And then he stops. He's like, "Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. If it was the other way around, I don't know if I would have done the same thing." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's it's a rule. It's a jungle out here, and
Oh, no.
it's I would understand if you decided not to part with your prey." So that's toy hunting.
But hopefully, he learned the
It's
spirit
so
of
stupid.
giving.
It's
He
so
learned the
stupid.
spirit of giving, and then the next
I
time he
hope, yeah, I hope he had a Grinchian moment where his heart grew two sizes too big, but not into the case of having a heart attack, Andre the Giant style. And perhaps he learned a thing before he took those little crystal Godzillas and flipped them online for a ridiculous amount. So, but yeah, the fervor. It's interesting. The fervor over children's toys. I was watching everyone lose their minds online because a couple other WalMarts around here. I knew it was like I knew the only the West Coast WalMarts were getting them, because when I was looking on eBay and kind of like keeping track of all the bandits of people screaming and yelling about scalpers, the furthest I saw anybody selling anything out of was Las Vegas. So it's like, okay, they're not back east yet. So I'm like, they're Playmates toys. They're children's toys, and someone was paying like $130 for the giant, not even the remote Godzilla, like the big one that was put out. The
yeah,
one,
yeah.
all the stuff I review, I'm just looking at him like, you guys are nuts. You guys are absolutely bonkers. But that's what happens when you have nothing going on and everyone wants to be first through the door. So thankfully, things have evened out now. I've on all of our little collector groups that we're on, I'm starting to see people like Backies pick up there. So it feels like everyone who wants one is now getting one. But yeah, for like a good week and a half there, it was like killed or be killed over dumb plastic toys.
I saw it on my Facebook and on my Instagram reels. I was like, "What is going on?" I mean, I knew what was going on, but I had other personal things going on, so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"I can't go out." That's the only one I'm interested in getting, but I haven't gotten it.
You have no idea how much joy this brings in my in the void of my life at the moment. When I popped this thing out, like it was like I was five again, and I had the little remote control bootleg Godzilla from Radio Shack, which goes to show how
Oh,
old we are getting. Do you remember that one? The little
yes, I
red,
do. I do.
yeah. That it just I was getting like non flashbacks. I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm four and I'm in the kitchen of my old house, and just this dumb thing is right. And it also had the smoking thing, but back then you put like oil into the head and it heated up because safety regulations be damned, and it would shoot the smoke out of the mouth. This
Yeah.
one's just simple water because now we got cooling coils. So
Yes, and I'm glad it's cold water.
yeah, it's that's what I was legit shocked by when I put my hand. I'm like, let's see how warm this is, because I have an electric tea kettle. That water's warm.
Yeah.
This is not. This actually feels like Freon when it comes out. It's
Oh,
wild. Yeah, it's kind of wild. But I'm assuming that's just for safety reasons, because you're
safety
gonna let
reasons.
some kid's gonna probably have a blast in his face, and it's like we don't need lawsuits coming in. People getting like kids getting their faces scalded. So, but we digress. There's things to talk about in today, Jessica. We are reviewing a show that has had a lot of interesting, well, let's just say discussion about it for the last month and a half. Mm.
It is. It is. So it is, Monarch Legacy Monsters. I see people say things like, "This is amazing. I can't wait for season 2. Give me more." And others are like, "Okay."
I'll say this. Look, In the last couple of weeks, I think you and I discussed this at the beginning of our -1 review. Because by the time we got around to that, was the fervor had really hit its, for no pun intended, its apex. Even though we're going to talk about later. But it was the fact that, one, people were talking about Godzilla, and they were talking about it positively, and they were. It was like, I know you had people talk to you that don't normally give two squats about Godzilla. I have had people that know I'm into Godzilla, but they would never shake their leg at Godzilla, calling me like, "Did you watch this movie?" I'm like, "I went to Japan to watch it." Yes, like, it's amazing. I'm like, yeah, hello. Yes, I've been screaming to the heavens about this since I was 9 years old. Godzilla is amazing. Like, just give him a shot. They're like, no, like, this was a legit great movie. Like, this was fantastic. In that same breath, I was getting people out of the blue hitting me up about Monarch, because for some reason, when you could have the biggest show movies on the face of the planet, but if you turn it into a streaming show, for some reason, that gets all kinds of other people who would never bother to go to the movies and watch it, to watch the thing that you've been screaming at people to watch. My cousin, family members, friends, they're like, "Hey, you're watching that Monarch show, aren't you?" I'm like, "Is the Pope Catholic?" Yes, of course I'm watching it. This is the look. This is the only way. Apple was diabolical. I have never purchased an Apple anything in my entire life because I've been a PC guy through and through. I was trained on Apple in school. I hate them. I don't like Apple's products. I'm one of those guys. I'm like, I draw the line in the sand. I'm an Android man. I don't like Apple. Chris, you're gonna have to pay us legitimate money because we have a Godzilla show. Damn it! So they got me. So yes. So we have, yes, I have been watching Monarch. I've actually been watching it with my brother, who went deep diving once I bought Apple. He discovered like 20 different shows on there. He's like, there's the is it Severance with Adam Scott?
Yeah.
He's like, "Are you watching that?" I'm like, he couldn't stop, he wouldn't shut up about it. And then I put on Monarch, and he's sitting there, he's like, "I'm in it, but the show's frustrating me." I'm like, I get it. I absolutely get it. Meanwhile, I have other people, like you said, going, "This is awesome. I can't get enough." I'm like, yeah, it's great, but I already knew exactly where it was going. So we're not going to dive too deep into Monarch because, Jessica, you got to watch most of it while we were in Japan, right?
Yes, I had the press screening through Apple, through Neil over at Dorkaholics. Thank you to Dorkaholics, a shout out, because they've also put some of, like, whenever I'm put on there, they also said Jessica's from the Kaiju Kingdom podcast, so we want to always cross promote. And I was given the first 8 episodes and then the last 2 episodes from there. And I will say what I love about the PR team is they always break down what questions you cannot ask during an interview. And if you don't catch up with the screeners, the spoilers are right there.
So they're making sure you're covered.
So people, if you have screeners, watch them, because when you do work and interview, you might get spoiled if you're not caught up.
I real quick, not that I digress too much, but we told the story a couple times on here for those who haven't listened to like the back issues. Sorry, I'm trying to fiddle with something down here. Anyway, years ago, I've just as I've told the story, Jessica and I met on press lines. We were doing press for the DC animated movies, and so you and I have a long history of doing these interviews, and I have walked into a fair amount of them because prepping for one, because at times it'd be a studio is doing it and not just a particular production. And so they're like, well, if you're going to, you want to talk to the cast of The Flash, you need to talk to these people for this new show that we're pushing that we didn't send you any screeners for. and maybe 4 episodes have been out. And if you have not watched it, well, that's on you. I have come up on the seat of my ass questions that have got me out of holes that you would not believe how deep I got dug into. I say the best example is of this was Comic Con. I want to say 2016 or 2015 or 2016.
Okay.
We did the Warner Brothers animation panel. So it was a lot of Adult Swim stuff. So
Yeah.
it actually it might have been earlier than that, 2014, because it was the Mike Tyson Mysteries, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Rick and Morty, and then Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. So Your Pretty Face had already been on. I had seen 2 episodes of it. I knew Rick and Morty in and out. I knew Aqua Teen in and out. Those are I was like ready to go. And then at the last second, because Mike Tyson was actually coming in to do the interview, they told us 1 question per person for Mike so we can move him along. So that was like, oh, it doesn't matter. But they're like, hey, we got the Your Pretty Face Goes to Hell people, and you got all the time in the world. And I am now going, crap. I have seen like 2 episodes of this show I don't know a single thing about. So as they're working their way down the press line, I'm on my phone, like flipping through, like, what else these guys have done? Like, I knew Dana Snyder was with them, but there's like, and I saw one of them did the Too Many Cooks video. I'm like, there we
Ooh.
go. There we go. And I managed to squeeze 25 minutes out of an interview and ask 2 questions about the entire show and got a whole different interview out of the guys just because I had to figure something out. So it's going in with the pitch. So
Yes.
little lessons.
Yes. And obviously we know as press there's an embargo. So some of the things that we talk about today, I knew like weeks ago.
Yeah.
But honestly had like no one to talk to about it. But also I don't know who has the screeners and who don't. And even though some people are press, they'll post for an embargo.
Yeah.
So I don't trust anybody I talk to.
It's almost like you become like a member of the Stonecutters. Like you guys have to give each other the secret look and then the handshake, just to understand, like, okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Like,
yes.
Are you part of this cabal?
Yes. And will you post and then like backstab me? And be like, so-and-so, I was nobody to talk to. Yeah. So I am excited that we could talk about it today.
So let's delve into it. So Monarch it's sandwiched nicely in between the bit of Godzilla mania that's going on right now. It debuted. So we saw -1 in Japan November 3rd. You technically saw it earlier than that, but let's just, for argument's sake, say November 3rd right now.
For both of us.
Was 2 weeks later. 2 episodes of this come out, and then 2 weeks after that is the movie. The -1 opens in America, and much like it reminded me of like when Mandalorian was wrapping up season 1, but it wasn't over yet. But we had Rise of the Skywalker coming out, and it felt like one was taking the wind out of the other, and for good reason. Like Monarch was gaining steam, but a lot of people, much like my aforementioned brother, were like, so you're giving me a 45-minute episode, and in that you're giving me a total of like 4 minutes of monster action. Okay, I see what you're doing here. So there was a little bit of that going on, and then when -1 finally reached American shores, it felt like everyone went from, yeah, we're gonna go talk about the Japanese movie more than we are talking about the show with Kurt goddamn Russell on it, and him, hanging out with Godzilla. Because even though, like, as I was trying to explain to people, I'm like, there's not gonna be a ton of like Godzilla. There's no way the budget's going to allow that. People are still kind of shocked and surprised by the fact of how little in terms of monsters are, and it's astonishing to me that people don't quite understand how budgets work today, especially for like streaming shows. even though in any other world this would have never happened, this show would have never aired on any network TV because they're not going to spend. Clearly, this show cost about $150 million, easy. But it's just the fact that like there's a show that takes place in between two different Godzilla movies, has Godzilla and other monsters in it, and yet everyone's still going like, what else you got? So I want to be fair with my assessment. Overall, I found more to like about Monarch than I didn't like. I'll put it that way. Do I have issues? Quite a bit. But the stuff that worked brilliantly, and they got me on the things I love because they played with the lore and they built the lore.
Yes.
But the other thing is, it suffers from the things I cannot stand about streaming shows is that you have a mystery box, and instead of telling us what's in the mystery box, you want to spend the 8 of the episode showing us how you're unraveling the mystery box when we want, like Brad Pitt, we want to know what's in the box. Like, just get us to the box. What's in the box? That's what we want. It's, I've not watched Squid Games. I've not watched Game of Thrones. There are so many of these shows now, especially in a, now that network TV's kind of like on its last legs and everything is a Netflix or stream, any kind of streaming show, they follow this formula that I've grown weary of, and they all kind of weirdly copy Lost's like MO, where first things first, we got to have the flashbacks because that's how we're going to stretch out this non-linear storytelling, and then we'll give you just this much progression each episode before we go back into, giving you the character backgrounds. I'm like, I want to go into a world. I want to come back to a world where we just do linear storytelling. I just want my linear storytelling back. Like, here's the problem. Here's where we have to go. Here's how we have to get to it. You can give me character development in between there without needing to needlessly flashback for character moments that aren't really going to pay off anything other than you're just trying to tell us who this person is. I'm like, there's better writing. I don't know. It feels lazy to me, and I'm not knocking the writers per se, but this is a trope that I'm kind of over. Before I go,
would die watching a K-drama though, because like it's always about reincarnation, like who they used to be in the Joseon era, and then you see them again in their modern time. So they were always meant to be.
Yes.
Like these, I mean, some is done well,
yes,
but some is definitely interesting. I love K-drama. It's actually, you were actually talking about it. Character development is done really well. I am a little bit tired of flashbacks. And what I like about Monarch is I was trying to explain it to a friend who accidentally actually came in halfway through the show. And I was like, buddy, it's 3 timeline flashbacks. And he's like, what the? What? What are we talking about? And then I was like, it's 3. It's 3. It's almost like, oh my God, I forgot which movie it was recently where it's actually, or show where you actually figure out it's actually 2 different timelines. Oh crap. It's going to come to me.
Listen, you're not thinking of Outlander, are you?
Well, Outlander is one, but Outlander makes it evident. It's not like The Lake House with Sandra Bullock or anything, but it's definitely a show or a movie. It's going to come to me after, where people were confused where they were in the timeline. So they thought the characters were like not in the same room, but in the same time. And then the twist was, as you're realizing, you're figuring out that they're actually in 2 different timelines. So it was one of those where at least this one, it was a little bit more evident because the actors are younger or older, or younger version or older version portrayals. But I even had a friend who didn't realize it was 2015 and was like, oh, I thought we were doing a 2023 situation.
No. That was the thing. Like, my cousin kept, she got into it, and she knows I like Godzilla. She doesn't watch anything Godzilla, but she has 2 little kids at home. So like many parents, her
Yeah.
and her husband get caught up in whatever they can stream because
Yes.
it's you're chasing a 11-month-old around and a 2-year-old around, and it's chaos. So you get whatever you get. Um, so she's sending me a million questions, like especially when they dropped the hint about Kurt Russell's age, and she's like, "How in the hell is he almost 90?" I'm like, "Well, if you know anything," I'm like, I was trying not to be snarky, but at the same time, I'm like, if you watch enough shows and you watch enough movies and you know a trope, like there's a mystery to be unraveled here, because if he's almost 90, then that means something happened. So I doubt they're going to just leave that hanging like a carrot for everybody to bite onto and there's nothing in it. So I'm like, just let it play out. So overall,
Okay.
the stuff that I loved about Monarch, and there were times I was legit in love with this show. I love the world building that it does, and there was moments where at first I was kind of sitting there a little confused. I'm like, well, because the thing I hate is that when you have an established timeline that's very kind of it's established, but it's kind of loose, so there's gaps you could fill in. And when you go in to fill in those gaps, but you want to put your own creative stance, I've seen enough times where people will add things and it kind of doesn't make sense continuity wise. When everything played out, I give the writers all the credit in the world, because it does seem like they really paid attention to the
Yes.
timelines and really
Yes.
laid everything out. So all the lore and the world building, especially at the very end with Bill, because when we come into Kong Skull Island and Bill is desperately trying to get funding for the Skull Island expedition, like halfway through the show, I'm sitting there, this is the back of my head, I'm like, if you guys had all the funding in the world, then how in the hell in Kong are you guys, is first off, it's some Star Wars stuff, because much like Star Wars, we went from Ewan McGregor to
Alec McGinnis.
Alec McGinnis in a 20-year period. And it's like,
I
look,
know.
living in the sun will do a lot of damage, but man, that's not just the sun. That's heavy drinking for 20 years too to age you that bad. Like you go
They
from the
did
dude,
feel dirty.
yes, you go from the dude from Workaholics that's not Adam Devine to John Goodman in the course of, I think it's like 9.5 years at that point, because I think the it ends at 63 to like 70. Is it 72, 70, 72 or 73? I forgot which year, but I'm like, that's not a long time. Like this dude, I mean, I get it. He lost his best friend and he lost his wife and he's raising a kid on his own. But to end up like John Goodman, like that is some hard living for the next 8 to 10 years. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, it's what I hated about Dark Phoenix, amongst other things. And look, I try to find the greatness in every movie, but Dark Phoenix, I walked away like wanting to just like throw my drink at the screen, because I'm like, you somehow made it worse than X-Men 3. But the thing that bothered me is like, you couldn't take a little flour and dust up Magneto's hair just a smidgen to show that the man is aging at least. I'm like, it's the cheapest thing you could have done, but no one could be bothered. I'm like, we've already gone over 30 years with this character. Just a little, touch of gray in the hair. That's all I would have been asking. Much like the Iron Fist show, just put the bandana on. That's all I want. Just put the damn bandana on. So when you're playing with that stuff like that with aging, especially when you have two different actors, give me a little bit of where does this go to this person? Sadly, look, and I love John Goodman to death. He is top tier, all time favorite TV dad. It's him and Uncle Phil. Those are my two TV dads. Those are the Mount Rushmores. But John Goodman's a man in his mid 60s, and he's gone through considerable weight loss from weight gain. So when you see him in Kong Skull Island, like he's in that in between part, I'm like, give me something from this dude who's clearly 41 years old to John Goodman who's 64. Like, how's he aging 20 years in 8 years? Like, just give me a little something. Beyond that, the building of the timeline, seeing
Yes.
the Rio Bravo bombing, the all like pretty much we get the first like 3 episodes building to the government trying to kill Godzilla. That stuff was great. All the flashback with Lee, Bill, and Kiko, I adored the hell out of it. They were the best characters in the entire show, absolute best. And every time we spent time with them, like the show was hitting its mark. I'm like, we could have just did the whole show with the flashbacks, and I would have been perfectly happy. I understand like you're trying to fill gaps and build some other story here, but what is clearly the B story was far better than the A story. The A
Yes.
story is where I had my problems, and it had nothing to do with Kurt Russell because the man is a
Yep.
is a
Yep.
demigod to me. And believe me, I'm not going to lie. There was a moment when I think it was like episode 6 when he's screaming at at Kate. He's like, "I'm not trying to stop Godzilla. I'm trying to help him." I just went, he said he's trying to help Godzilla. Like my two childhood heroes are on the same screen. Like they're like 9-year-old me, just in my head. It's just like the single tear going down the. I'm like, this is truly a beautiful future we live in, where Kurt goddamn Russell is on a Godzilla show, and those words are coming out of his mouth. I loved it. Everything with the kids who are grown ass adults, I could not stand whatsoever. They were the most annoying, frustrating characters, and the writing. Like I'm not knocking the actors themselves because an actor is only as good as the material that they are given. So I'm not sitting here knocking the actors. I'm knocking the writing and the performance they were told to give for these characters. And it's the thing I hate about modern writing is that you make little kids the smartest people in the room, and for some reason, people who are supposed to be grown ass adults act like little kids. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate this idea of these wildly immature 20 somethings. Because they're not 18. These are people in their mid 20s. Some of them, one of them's pushing their late 20s. And they all act like they're 16 years old. No, no. I hate this trope. I hate this style of writing. I absolutely detest it. And this is where the show lost a lot of the goodwill that the other parts of the show built up. Just there's even I turned to my brother and he's like, "So what do you think so far?" I'm like, "I hate that the Kate character is giving me a migraine with how she's acting as a person in the situation." And my brother would always bring up, he's like, I'm just kind of like blown away that they are globetrotting and magically, as they're on the run from the government, they all have all the proper equipment they need to be in the environment they're in. Ice, they got all the cool like ice climber stuff. They're in the desert. They're in desert gear. It's like they're making action figures, but we're never getting action figures of these characters. I'm like, yes, you're quite right. So, Jessica, your thoughts as I replenish here real quick.
No, I actually, I mean, up until whoever saw last episode, I'm fine with Tim,
Mm-hmm.
the older office worker who
He's
basically
great. He's great.
helps him out.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was telling my best friend Sam, as we've mentioned, I was like, you know what this is, which they don't really do. I'm like, if you think about it, this is a love story. Monarch, I mean, we meant of the older of Lee, Bill, and Keiko. I was like, this is a love story.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, it's a romance. And he was like, oh, okay.
Well, no, it clearly came off like that, especially once we got to the end game, if you will, of the show.
Yes,
Like,
I'm like, it's a romance, right?
mm-hmm.
It can be romantic.
Mm-hmm.
I I think all of their budget went into Godzilla fighting, like the Iron Dragon, like whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
going through all that, him coming out of the desert, he is all. I believe their budget went to them and Kurt Russell. I don't know what his fee is, but I was definitely.
I'm pretty sure he probably. I guarantee he took a little bit of a snippet because he was getting his son some work.
Yeah, and they did a good job casting, father and son.
Absolutely brilliant. I love that. Was a brilliant stroke.
Yes.
Doing the father and son as the same character. That I absolutely love. That aspect.
Yes.
When they leaned into some of the more sci-fi aspects of the show, this is where they were at their strongest. When it came to the human drama of Kate, Kitaro, and May, I was going to have an aneurysm from how much like these characters are just. I'm like, not like. There's no pragmatism whatsoever with them. Everything is a big deal, and everything is just you turned up to 10. And there are times I can use. You're watching Kurt Russell because Kurt was one of the best aspects of the modern stuff, and you can tell he's even like, look, I'm just gonna Kurt Russell it up, and hopefully that'll make it. I'm like, yes, thank you. It's the breath of fresh air. Like, I just feel like once they realized they had Kurt Russell, they're like, we got to write something in the ice because we got to redo Thing as much as we can. So we got to put Kurt Russell back in the damn ice in snow gear fighting monsters. So that's the first thing I picked up on when they were fighting the, I think it's the Ice Vark. I'm like, you guys just wanted to sit outside and ask him, what was it like making the Thing?
Yeah,
because that's what you're doing here.
Yes, and so the moment, like, it opens up great, when we get to see Mother Longlegs and John Goodman, like an older Bill Randa, all that stuff. The twist with the Randa kids, like how they are related. But the moment I saw Keiko fall into the thing, I thought of a line that also Sam likes to quote a lot from Psych, the show. No body, no crime. Sean, like, we never saw her. You saw her fall, and obviously it's answered as we're watching those. There will be spoilers in this episode, but some people are not able to catch up. But obviously, she was going to come back around, right? She's a huge in the situation. There were definitely moments where you could see coming. I think the strong parts for me were the flashbacks with Bill, Lee, and Keiko, and modern day Tim. Tim was someone that you hated, and then you kind of understood, and then you went to the end, and what is going on. I do love mostly the lore.
Yes.
With Hollow Earth, what is going on, what's going on beyond around the world. I wish they made smart young adult characters not also annoying, but I did like the fact that Kate did yell at the head of Monarch when that in the van, when the woman, I think it was episode 8 or something, where she's trying to ban them, and she says, I don't work for you, first of all, so you can't yell at me. 2, your company's done nothing. Your organization, we found him, we did this, we've been on the run, and that was one of the stronger points of the character. It was a good solid B show for me. I would watch it with friends, but anyone who was expecting, I was one of those optimistic people that wanted more Titans and monsters.
Yeah.
But I should have learned from Game of Thrones that even with the large budget, you're only going to see the dragons so many times.
Very much so. That I expected. Like, going in, I'm like, we'll probably see Godzilla maybe like out of the 10 episodes, maybe like 4 or 5 times. And they're probably going to save the best for like the last episode, which shocking they did.
Yes. Yes. I did not expect to see Kong.
Neither did I. That was a nice, pleasant surprise at the very end.
That was a huge shock for me.
Which, if they do a season 2, man, that's weird to say. I'm sorry. If we do get a season 2, I would love for them to actually flip the focus, and so season 1's Godzilla focused and season 2's Kong focused. It would be a nice change of pace for what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like when they're building the lore, setting up everything, and they did do I would say a pretty good job of pulling off connecting the strings.
Yes.
The episode that won me over, which I expected to be the episode to hate the most. I'm like, we're getting May's backstory. It's coming up, and she's the one character I care
Woo!
the least about
Yes, it pays
because
off. So
and yeah, it walked away. I'm like, oh, I'm like about 20 minutes in when I'm like,
yes,
wait, she's working for some tech firm. There's a big tech firm in Godzilla and Kong. No, I'm like, they're not doing this. They're not doing what I think they're doing. And then when she name drops Simmons, I'm like, you shut your mouth. You're not doing what I think you're doing. And then at the very end, like I'm sitting there and I'm like leaning forward when when Monarch's like, well, we made a deal with them, so we gotta, May's free to go. And I'm like, this isn't what I think it is. And then when they pull back to like the rebranding, I'm like, you dirty bastards! You pulled Apex into this, and you're
yes,
giving them a backstory. I'm like, if they do the thing that I think they're going to do and turn them into the Hydra to Monarch's shield, I'm like, this show has completely redeemed itself. I'm like,
I was like, what? I like got out of my chair. Couch. I was like,
yeah.
what?
Oh, I'm like, oh, this because again, like, I love Godzilla and Kong, but I much like everyone, like you can tell that movie got cut down to the bare minimum. There was a lot more stuff going on. And I'm like, Apex as an entity has a lot of potential. I love the idea of like an anti-monarch, like because once you discovered there's a world where giant monsters exist and there's a second subworld, I'm like, no, there's money to be had, and now you've entered like a new sort of weapons race because now it's like, well, nuclear weapons aren't your big thing. You got giant monsters. And one, I love the idea of like a Lex Luthor style like billionaire character. Like, no, 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 no. We're not going to rely on Godzilla to be our hero. We will make our own Godzilla. And I'm like, yes, like those characters. That portion of that movie, I know it got cut down a bit, but I'm
Yeah,
like, there's juice to be squeezed from this whole organization. And when they ended at the end on Skull Island, like Apex is there, and there's 2 years now in between the gap because play with time dilation again. Something I'm like, okay, cool,
yes,
this all makes sense. But Kong coming out, I'm like, oh, okay, this fills in a lot of gaps of like Apex setting up everything, how they had access to like Monarch tech stuff from Skull
yeah.
Island, like how they get
Yes.
like you
Wait,
diabolical bastards. This you have won me over. Like now I'm in because this is what I want. I want lore and world building, and that episode gave it to me in spades. So I'm like, all right, I'm hooked in for the rest of the ride. Let's do this. So it's doing stuff like that. It's the establishing like so they still haven't like Godzilla and Kong. They were still trying to establish like we can't get into Hollow Earth proper because there's a gravity field. So when they ended up in the portion of Hollow Earth that that
right,
Kate
right.
and Lee and that's where Keiko was there for when she said, I've only been here for like 57 days. And you start doing like, okay, so a day there is a year outside. So that's the time dilation. It's because Godzilla and Kong, they explain like there's a heavy gravity field inside. And when you play with gravity, that distorts time. So if there's little pockets like before you go into the Hollow Earth, and once they explain like, no, this isn't Hollow Earth proper. This is like a pocket that's kind of in the bigger geode, if you will. I'm like, all works. And the gravity thing makes sense with the time dilation. Like you cleared this all up. It makes perfect sense. I love that. Um, it's still not clear on if the Lawton was sunk by Godzilla or the Iron Dragon. It wasn't quite clear of what it was yet, but
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
still thinking it's Godzilla.
Yes. I've also loved the idea of Godzilla having a job.
I love that too. Well, they're really playing into the idea that yes, he is the alpha of that world.
He just
Uh,
kind of doing his work.
when he came in, when Lee is trying to lure him down, like once they establish like you need a Titan to go through the portal to drag it back, so they're
Yeah.
calling Godzilla, and then it calls the Iron Dragon down, and Godzilla just steps out. And he's got his hands on his hips. It's that disappointed meme. It's that guy like going like he's just yeah. It's like what the hell is this? Like it's almost like Kurt Russell in Tombstone. He's walking in. and he's giving Johnny Ringo like some guff. Like I'm like, she's like, just more of this, really? All right, let me just beat the crap out of this thing and we'll move on. The fight though was fantastic. I did love the fight, even though how short it was. Mike, it's the first. I realized it's the first time in 10 years, at least, Godzilla has fought a brand new villain. The last new one would have been the Mutos. So this is the
Yes.
first time seeing Godzilla fight someone new, which was a nice change of pace. I'm like, I appreciate the addition of the other Titans. I didn't pick your brain. What'd you think of the new monsters they introduced, like the Ice Vark?
I know that in order to have some control over the lore, they made the writers, the creators, and stuff made kind of their own, like Mutos,
Mm-hmm.
they made their own Titans and everything. I'm okay with them. Like the design to me, I think is stuff that you may have seen before in
Mm-hmm.
other shows. If you watch a pitch meeting with Ryan George, it's a YouTube show where he goes down the plot holes of all the movies. They always say that Marvel has another faceless army
Mm-hmm.
in every Marvel film. They were like, oh, so at Endgame, it's Thanos and a faceless army, and it's just a CGI army, and it flashes back to the first Avengers of Loki and also the Chitauri, and they're faceless. I
Yeah.
know that they're visually different, but I almost felt like I've seen some of these kaiju designs before somewhere else. But with that being said, I like creatures like Mother Longlegs, which is just a very big spider, because I remember being shocked where we thought it was bamboo,
Yeah.
but it turned out to be stabbing the people that were with Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston's characters. My God, their name escapes me at the moment. However, so I like things that are based off of established creatures that we have now, but I also feel like it's, if you're going to make something completely new, then there's a little bit of a challenge there, because a lot of designs is people may feel like has been repurposed from somewhere else. They're not terrible. They're better than whatever I can come up with.
True.
But when he's fighting the Iron Dragon, I thought to myself, you can't lose to this little twerp. I
No.
know he's fat, something in your eyes. You could be blind. I
Mm-hmm.
hope not. But you cannot be king of the monsters and not win against this creature.
Yes.
I
I appreciate the gratuitous violence in which Godzilla beats the crap out of this thing. Like it was, as I told my brother, I'm like, this is Gamera level violence. Like he rips off his wing and then
yes.
just chucks his ass through that portal. So that means there's a hole somewhere where the corpse of this monster is just going to get spat back out. So
Yeah.
some poor bastard in Rio de Janeiro is probably enjoying their day, and then the corpse of this giant bat monster just spits out of the ground and lands in front of him. Like that's the wild, wacky world of the Hollow Earth. So it does give some.
Like them? Did you like them?
I did. You know what? I did. I look. I
Oh, you're muted. You're muted on accident. Oh,
all
there
right.
you go.
There we go. I bumped something.
No, it's
Can
no
you hear me?
problem.
Yeah,
Yes, so I asked if you liked the designs.
I did. I actually have been in the camp of, especially with the legendary movies and the Monsterverse. I'm like, let's move into our own thing. Let's
Right,
make
right,
new.
right.
I'd rather have new than rehashes. I understand the appeal and the allure of like upgrading, some of the older monsters with modern special effects. I'm good. You know what? I got all the big ones. I got Mechagodzilla, I got Ghidorah, I got Rodan, I got Mothra. if one day we get Anguirus down the line, that's cool. But the rest, I'm like, no, let's explore new ideas, new monsters, new concepts. I would much rather, if this, ironically, this thing's going to have long legs. You need to kind of create new. You need to add new elements to it, and making new monsters is a big part of that. So I'm more down with them coming with like an Ion Dragon over saying like, well, let's we could throw Rodan back in there or something like that. I'm more down with new stuff. That's kind of why I'm digging what I've seen out of Godzilla and Kong New Empire. I'm like, yes, give me the evil Kong. We already got the evil Godzilla. We've never had an evil Kong. Like Shimo, the new ice monster. Yes, that this is the stuff that I want out of this over say, like I just said, like they can dig down like, oh, we're gonna do Guy again. I'm like, that's cool, but I've seen this stuff done dozens of times now. Like, I need new, I need fresh. Like, let's do that. So I am much more in line with it, with Legendary doing any of that over shelling out the money to just do a giant upgrade of a classic monster. So the new guys I appreciate, but I'm like, if you're gonna do them, I want them big. Just give them to me big. I want at least a rival. So, and the thing I kind of want more than anything else, I'm like, start building a roster for Kong to hang out with. Either have some buddies for him, have some rivals. That's kind of the world I want in the Monsterverse right now. Like, so, but that is my long-winded answer to that.
Overall, I think people are going to enjoy the backstory with Lee, Keiko, and Bill. I think that's what, when it comes to human characters,
they are the strongest. They are the strongest.
Yeah. Because like with like Shaw and everything, you're wondering which side he's on, because when you're only watching snippets, I had friends ask me, is he good or is he bad? I'm like, well, we'll know when you watch the whole show.
Yeah.
Where he's going, what he's doing. Which I felt was interesting because it makes him a much more three-dimensional character. He's much more compelling to like.
Well, again, there's a point when they're at the site in Kazakhstan, and Kate is going to him. She's like, "This is all about Keiko, isn't it? This isn't about stopping monsters." He looks at her, he's like, "Well, yeah, duh. Of course, this is about Keiko. Like, I'm not even hiding it. Like, you're just figuring this out now. Like, come on. Like, of course, this is all for her." So, and of course, just really, really Kurt Russelling it up too. But again, that's what I would say: smart writing with a dumb character, and Kate kind of like, "Oh, I figured it out," and Kurt's character kind of going like a little meta, like, "You're just now picking this up. We're 8 episodes in on this, like, and you're just now figuring out this is what I've been up to the entire time." So, I did like the little snippet of like they threw in the extra footage from Godzilla versus Muto from the first movie that was in the deleted scenes. They recycled it for when he's sitting there in the old home watching the TV. I'm like, oh, you gave us a little extra. Oh, thank you. I did like the evolution that they played with Godzilla. Like when we saw him in, was it 54? And he was kind of lean and a little more like, he looked a little more like upbeat before he walked up to the nuclear bomb and had it blow up in his face.
I know, he got blown in the face.
Yeah.
The fact he got blown in the face and didn't kill all of humanity is a mercy.
Once we found out all they did was essentially just give him a giant protein shake. Like it just bulked him up. Like he got his creatine in for the day. Like he just went, healed up, and then just bulked up. But I just remember when that scene happened and people were like, it's like he was like a little puppy going for his dish, but they didn't realize it was electrified. Like this was a terrible experiment for him. So, yeah, just explaining like why he's just huge and jacked and bulky and like it's the little aesthetics like that. I appreciate stuff like that. To be fair, like the effects were pretty good too. Like I'll give him full credit where credit's due. Like everything looked pretty good for the small snippets. My main thing is Bill's adopted son, Kate, and Kitaro's father. The mystery of like what the hell he was up to and what his whole game plan was. I don't even think the show figured out what that. They're just like, we need this guy to have a double life,
Yeah.
and we're gonna
Yeah.
meet him, and then he's gonna disappear. Like there's not a lot of rhyme or reason other than like I'm trying to prove my dad correct. And at any point, like when he's when they finally got to the point where Kitaro and his dad meet back up at the apartment in Tokyo, like I'm sitting there, and there's a point I'm like, wait, is this a flashback? No, it's modern, and it felt like writing wise, they're like, let's just get this done with because this has been the whole crux of the show, and we went down other routes. Like we
Yeah.
just got to wrap it up, and this guy, it never really explains why, like he cheated on his wife in the first place. I'm assuming that's Kate. Kate was, Kate's mom was the other woman. So they are all over the map on the. I mean, look, I get for interesting story wise, like yes, a man having two families, but his motivation, why he was doing what he was doing, none of it made any sense to me other than like we just need a reason for these kids to be globe hopping to be where Godzilla is going to be because their dad's going to be there. Like even when he came back into the picture, and
Yeah.
at the end, spoilers, when he went to work with Apex, it made sense to how Apex got their hand on a lot of like Titan material, but it's still like it felt so, how to put this without sounding like an asshole, half-ass. It felt very half-ass. So that's the best way I can describe it. Like that whole thing, the payoff on that felt so limp that I even at the end I'm like I don't care anymore. Like Kurt Russell got sucked into another void, so he's probably somewhere in the future. So that if they want to either do another show or, God willing, they want to put him in the next movie, which God I hope. They figure out a way. As you said, no body,
No crime. No
no
body,
crime.
no crime, Sean. And the moment you figure out that Kentaro and Kate have the same father, but then like how are they related, but they don't know, all I hear is Leslie Knope's voice when she goes, only men have secret families.
Yes.
And she goes on and I'm like,
it's very, very, very much so. Like it's like
mom? Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
That woman, like you're sitting there like, girl, come on, you could do better. Like you are like too much of a pushover. Like even at least Kate's mom was like, I kind of had a suspicious feeling, but we live in San Francisco. That's the free love era. Like he came back to me. It's like even stuff like both of you are kind of like, I don't know what to think of either of you other than like you guys should be more mad that this guy kept a secret life on on the closest points of two sides of the Pacific. Ironically, it's like if you did this in New York and then Tokyo, like I feel like you could get away with it much more than San Francisco and Tokyo, where it's just a quick jaunt over by a plane ride. So still, I'm like, you didn't really. This guy didn't earn the redemption or anything. It wasn't like Scott Pilgrim where it's like, no, I learned not to be an asshole. Like, no, like sadly, I'm kind of a dick. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, my mom disappeared, and I knew about giant monsters, and my adopted father was eaten by a skull crawler. So that has led me to a life of ill repute, of keeping two different women in the dark about each other and my relationship with them while fathering a child with each of them. It's like, okay, cool. So
and this
overall,
is why Godzilla wants none of your human drama. That's why Godzilla wants none of your human drama. He's like, I don't like these cheating stories.
like I said, the opening of the show, like when Mandalorian was out and we had Rise of Skywalker, we had one episode of Mandalorian left when Rise of Skywalker came out. I walked out of Rise of Skywalker going, wow, man, that went downhill real quick. Well, at least I had Mandalorian, and I went home to the greatest season final I had watched watching the Chicken Man take on, Mando, Creed, and Gina Carano, and the dude from the IT crowd as a robot sacrificing himself, and then the dark saber. I'm like, this is all like what? How can these things be in the same world? And one just be a complete like we just threw whatever at the wall and saw it stick. And this, we laid it out. You are salivating for the next helping. Like we had Godzilla -1, and then we had Monarch. Now I get it; they are the same, but they are very different. It's two different studios. The argument isn't as sound, but I would say that yes, when we went from dealing with trauma of a man who was wussed out on his patriotic duty and ended up getting his all of his friends and crewmates murdered by a dinosaur, and dealing with the guilt of that, did far better than dealing with survivor's guilt of Godzilla accidentally knocking over a school bus full of children that he had hopped out of. Much, much better. So one was a little bit better than the other. I'm just going to put it that way. But in the overall gestalt of things, like you said, I think Monarch is a solid B show. When it leans into the lore, it's at its best. When you give us the backstory of Bill and Kate, or Kiko and Lee, and every time I see Kurt Russell on screen, I'm just like, yes, this is a beautiful, bold future. We could just ignore it, like you just fan edit some of this stuff out. I would say it's 75% a damn good show. And the other 25, well, that's just the tax you have to pay to get to the good stuff. So
yes. Usually I don't like flashbacks. Well, it depends. It depends. But this time I did like the flashback.
Yeah.
And I don't see Wyatt Russell in a lot of stuff. My first actual introduction of him is in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, if that's your first thing, you're like, oh man, don't like him. Knockoff version of his dad. I don't know. Did great.
He did fantastic. He was really aping his dad in some parts too. Did you notice that?
Yeah. The part where Bill and Keiko were very close, and then Lee shot like he just comes around the corner and he hears them talk, and he's just you feel it. You're like, oh dang, he's channeling some Kurt Russell acting energy there from his dad, and you felt so bad. You're like, the love triangle is starting.
And he was the bigger man. He stepped back. He allowed them to have themselves. That is taking the high road.
Yes, he's a soldier through and through. The sacrifice.
Yes. But yeah, I'm glad this show exists. Again, like if you asked me 20 years ago, do you think you'll ever see a Godzilla TV show? I would say no, never. Maybe an anime. At that point, I was still astonished 20 years ago. I'm like, why hasn't there been a Godzilla anime? And now we live in a world where there's
3 of them. No, 4 of them. If you
4 of them, yes, including Singular Point. And it just feels like at times people are like, yeah, that's cool. What else you got? I'm like, oh, this shows we have way too much now. So, but a live action show that is movie quality, that is like blockbuster movie quality, with names, with a pretty good talent of writers and actors in front of the screen and behind the scenes, like this should not exist in any world. But we now live in a world where there's people seriously pushing for some Oscar nominations for a Godzilla movie. So all bets are off. We live in a fantastic timeline, and I'm glad that we do have Monarch. I just pray to whatever God that is out there that we get a physical release of this on home video sometime down the line, because I am done paying for Apple now that the show's done, and they are not getting my money back. So I'm not keeping this. I'm not keeping that subscription open just so I can go back, because I think I'm good. I think this is one of those one watch, and if it comes out on DVD, I'll happily buy it, so that way I can sit there and go through the entire timeline of things. But Yeah, it's not worth paying $9.99 for another subscription service I am never going to use. So, final thoughts, Jessica.
I really was shocked with Apex and Kong. I think
Mm-hmm.
those were the two biggest shockers for me. I did love the lore of knowing more about Hollow Earth and kind of how that works and the gravity and the Ion Dragon, all of that. If there is a season 2, great, but it's not for me something where like I have to have a season 2. And if it is, I hope it is even better than the first one. I really liked What If from Marvel, and What If 2 season 2 came out. I loved What If season 1, but if they
Mm-hmm.
ended it, I'm like, that makes sense. They're just doing some Elseworlds. But then they came out with the season 2, and I liked it even better than season 1 in certain aspects. So I'm very happy to see it. So if there is a season 2, I think that's great. However, I don't have to have a season 2. It's like a solid B for me. I actually look more forward to the film that comes out a couple weeks earlier. I believe is like March 29th now or something. A little bit earlier this year. Like by like 2 or something.
Yes, it got picked up, or actually got moved up. There's been some shifting. So Warner Brothers ironically moved it back to its original release date where it was supposed to be. So we now get it 2 weeks earlier. The rest of the world is going to get it over the next week and a half after that. But just, yeah, I mean, the fact that you and I were in Japan a month and a half ago watching a brand new Japanese Godzilla movie, and now we are a month and a half away from another Godzilla movie. It's so much. It's just coming at me at all directions. It was like when, again, going back to Marvel, when my dearly departed father and I sat and watched Avengers, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I took him and we walked out. The man was 56, 57 at the time. And I turned to him like, what did you think? He looked at me as he put a cigarette in his mouth, lit it up. He's like, son, I thought you would be dead in the ground as an old man before we ever got anything like this. So the fact that I am seeing these characters like this in my lifetime brings me no shortage of joy. I cannot believe I just watched Iron Man and the Hulk fight a bunch of goddamn aliens. He's like, this is a magnificent future. He also said something else that's a little off color that I'm not going to repeat here, but it's funny. But that was my father. He was a big man child, but he again, just the fact that he's like, I had the Lou Ferrigno Hulk. That was the closest I got. We had for Superman, we had Christopher Reeves, and now the next year I took him to see Man of Steel, and he's like, son, I never thought I'd see anything like this. This is insane. Like all these characters that I grew up with as a kid, I'm like, these would be cool. It's like now they're out. Like we got one Batman every 5 years. We thought that was it. Like, man, we're living well. Like now it's like every 6 months there's Captain America. They're doing Thor. He's like, holy shit. Like I have no idea. Like this, it's so much. Like it's just so much. I'm like, yes. And now I'm having that moment. I'm like, there's a Japanese Godzilla movie that people are putting up there with like Scorsese and Spielberg, and then we're turning around and we're getting probably the most comic booky Godzilla movie that anybody could conjure up.
Running because together.
I'm watching Super Saiyan Godzilla run with King Kong with a power glove on his fist. I'm like, that again, the 9-year-old me would be like his brain would just be exploding with raw energy out of his head because he would have no idea how to comprehend any of this stuff. So it is a glorious future. This is the best timeline. Like I cannot reiterate that enough to people.
For pop culture, it is the best timeline. Yes. There are like I never thought I would see Ant-Man on Anthony flying around.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Little Jussie would never thought that would have happened.
I love that Ant-Man movie so much too. You have no idea how much I love that first Ant-Man movie.
Trains at the
end. I love it so much.
Yeah, no, And the fact that if you were in Japan, you got to see it again in black and white, Godzilla -1 with no color.
Mm-hmm.
Really wanted to see it. I hope it comes out with the English dubs in black and
As
white.
do I. Well,
because the director did say they didn't just monochrome it. They went through, he made certain parts darker, certain like there's dimension and nuance to the black and white. So it's scarier or it's more vivid to you. Not vivid in colors, vivid in terms of what you're seeing. He didn't just turn it black and white like a filter, you know?
Yeah.
I
Well,
really would love to see that.
I point to one of the best monster movies ever made, The Mist. Frank Darabont went, I'm going to do a black and white version. I have the DVD sitting in the other room because he's like, this would work well as like a noirish movie. Mad Max Fury Road did a monochrome version. Logan had a monochrome version. Guillermo del Toro the only version of Nightmare Alley I saw was the black and white version. And honestly, that's how it's going to remain because it was so good in black and white. I'm like, I don't think I could watch this in color because it will spoil this movie for me. So this is my only image.
Justice League, black and white, wasn't it?
Oh, no, Justice League.
Did they?
They did not put out the black and white version. I think they released the black and white version on Max, but I don't believe the DVD has it because I have the DVD. I don't think it has the black and white version. I do believe that they gave it like a release in that. I think Snyder actually screened it somewhere too, because that was the only version he had. None of it was color timed yet, so it was just all monochrome. So I think he managed to work something in there of like, we could put it out how everyone was seeing it forever, and you could view it that way too. So why not? Like, I love black and white. I love black and white as an aesthetic to be done as movies, and I kind of wish more people would go back to do it because there's you can work greatness, atmosphere, mood, tension with just lighting, and that is something we have lost a lot of. So, I really hope we get -1 minus color as it's called. I'm actually going to reach out to our good friend Kazuki because he said he's going to be viewing it. So hopefully we can maybe get, some boots on the ground reaction to how it's doing over there. But I do know that as we're recording this weekend, Godzilla -1 has crossed the $100 million barrier worldwide box office. So I cannot believe that. But it is true, and it is astonishing beyond belief. So,
and it's still playing in theaters.
It got pushed for another week. It just keeps going and going. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It will not stop. So, I'm going to give it one more showing this week because I feel like I need to cleanse myself after these last couple of weeks. And I still haven't seen it on IMAX. So, I'm going to see if I can try to find an IMAX screening. I've seen the other versions. IMAX is the last one that eludes me. So, all right. I think that is going to wrap it up for this episode. Jessica, where can the good people find more of us?
You can find us on YouTube at the Kaiju Kingdom podcast, Instagram, Facebook. Now, Instagram and Facebook is also great because Chris is just posting stuff every day. YouTube just also has obviously our podcast, but all of the reviews, like he said earlier, of all of our toys that he actually had put out. We are also the Kaiju Kingdom podcast at gmail.com and as our website for .com and wherever podcasts are found.
And yes, I am slowly working my way to archiving all of the back episodes of the show up there for people because I just realized not a couple months ago that all of our episodes are not available on the streamer. Now, you can download them, but I have not ported them over to the new site yet, so they're a little hard to find, so I'm working my way through that. So just bear with me, but we're getting a lot up there. So, and there's a lot of footage from Japan still that's coming up. Tons of stuff. So please, if you want to really help support the show in any way, and we're not selling anything, but if you want to help support us, we are getting the YouTube channel monetized. You can always subscribe, give us a watch, whatever. That will help us out, and thus we can get more stuff to you guys. So, on that note, that will wrap it up for this edition of the Kaiju Kingdom podcast. For myself and
Jessica.
Thanks for watching, guys. Shut off.
Oh no!
Stepped on my delivery. Hold on, let me see if I can do it again. There we go. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. And we'll see you
I love it.